Coming up on Mountain News this morning, survivors and first responders reflect on the worst tornado outbreak in eastern Kentucky history, and a former WYMT anchor and reporter talks about her experience during that fateful day.
Dedicated to eastern and southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News this morning.
Good morning to you. I'm Dakota Makris on this Thursday morning. It's 5 o'clock here. Thanks so much for joining us. And Brandon and I are back this morning after a little hiatus. But yesterday, I think we told some good stories yesterday, Brandon.
I think we did too. I think we did the victims of the outbreak proud. And hopefully their stories will continue to be told during our special coming up March the 14th. But this morning, the weather is still quiet, so that's some good news for us. We take a look and see what's going on out there. I don't know if we're going to get much cooler than we are right now. We got 60 in Prestonsburg. That's the warmest spot in the region, and 47 in Harlan. We had the forecast going down to about 45 or 46, but I don't think it's going to go down that far. We have to adjust our temperatures a little bit. So an iced coffee, normal day type morning out there as you hit the door this morning, and as you go out to breakfast, get those bowls ready. You're going to need, again, temperatures that should slide a little bit more, but they may not. We may have to adjust this here in just a second or two, but for right now, we're forecasting 45 by 7. We'll see if we actually make it in most areas. Dakota?
All right, Brendan, thank you. Well, Wednesday marked the 10-year anniversary of the March 2nd, 2012 tornado outbreak. Still the worst tornado outbreak in eastern Kentucky history. Places like West Liberty were virtually destroyed that day. We talked with a tornado survivor who was impacted and how the storms had an impact on her. Doris Sheck was home alone when the storm hit. She says it lasted about 3 minutes. Thankfully, she was able to escape from the debris unharmed. She was later reunited with her family, but says that day is still haunting.
It was so sad and hard for me to say, we no longer live at 644 Liberty Road. I need to do a change of address. That was very hard. I can remember being tearful several times when I had to do that.
After the tornado passed through, Doris posted on Facebook, quote, "I am alive. Lindsay and Richard are with me. Austin, call me. My house is gone," end quote. The tornado that hit West Liberty had peak winds of 140 miles per hour. And several people died when a tornado hit Laurel County on that same day. In East Bernstadt, the crisis management was handled by Albert Hale, the Laurel County Emergency Management Director at that time. Hale says he was driving towards London when the tornado touched down nearby. He rallied local fire departments and emergency personnel to respond as soon as the coast was clear.
There'd only been one person killed in Laurel County due to a tornado up to this point.
5 people in East Bernstadt area would die that night, with one person dying from their injuries some days later. Nearly 400 homes were destroyed. Johnson County was also hit hard that night. Officials say nearly 400 homes were either damaged or destroyed there, and dozens were injured. 2 teens also died that night. One Johnson County official said nobody expected something like this in the mountains of eastern Kentucky.
It came as a surprise, but in another way, I think a lot of people was kind of expecting something, but I guess we really didn't anticipate it was going to be as severe as it was.
Now the areas that were damaged have recovered, but officials say some families are still dealing with what happened financially and emotionally. Parts of Magoffin County were also affected during the outbreak, and near the end of Restaurant Row in Salyerville, you will find several homes that were not spared from the damage. Patricia Patrick's family lives in a home next to the Howard family. Both homes were hit during the Salyerville storm and have since been rebuilt from the ground up. During the rebuilding and in the 10 years since the tornado, Patrick says her family still fears the possibilities, but they rebuilt in a way that makes them feel a bit safer.
I don't worry too much now because we've got a shelter. When we built our other building back, we put a shelter back in the hill with solid concrete. So we've got a protection now for anybody.
Well, with that shelter and the county's tornado sirens that were since installed, families like the Patricks say it is a little bit easier to feel safe moving forward. Magoffin County schools were among those participating in the statewide tornado drill Wednesday morning. One was Salyerville Grade School. The facility was heavily damaged during the tornado outbreak in 2012. Principal Gary Helton says the tornado affected several schools in the district.
I mean, middle school is no longer across the street from us. We now have a baseball and softball field that you know, you're reminded of that. And we also have a new high school. When you drive by, you're reminded that's, you know, a product of a tornado.
Helton says the kids who are too young to remember the tornado did well during the drill. Well, one of the first people on the ground after the storms is now Senate President Robert Stivers. Another lawmaker who is trying to get back home to the mountains was Rocky Atkins, now senior advisor to Governor Andy Beshear. Now, we talked with both men 10 years later. Both of them visited hard-hit areas of eastern Kentucky, commenting on the devastation they saw, but seeing the amazing change communities saw following the aftermath when they begun to rebuild. But that day is still fresh on their minds.
Came here, parked outside of town, walked through this community. I couldn't believe what I saw. It looked like a war zone.
They were talking about how to coordinate the relief efforts, trying to get water and food in there, get their utilities back up.
Well, both Stivers and Atkins commented on the spirit Kentuckians had after the storms hit, saying they saw Kentuckians helping each other despite some losing everything. And oh, it's incredible what the men and women in emergency services all across our region did to help people that day. Well, we also talked to 3 of our former WYMT reporters who covered those storms. Well, we sent former WYMT anchor and reporter Katie Roach Dietrich to hard-hit West Liberty the night of. One issue she and our team ran into was the road leading into West Liberty was blocked by police. She also says communication was gone. She tells us that day broke a myth of how people felt about eastern Kentucky weather.
Even to this day, that was the one thing that everybody kept saying in the days after. It's like nobody thought that this could happen. Nobody thought that tornadoes, especially ones that were that devastating, could happen in the mountains of eastern Kentucky.
Well, you can see more of Katie's interview in our upcoming special that airs Monday, March 14th at 7:00 p.m. right here on WYMT. Well, thank you so much for getting your Thursday morning started with us here on Mountain News This Morning. When we come back, a team down in Florida uses his talents to help fight Russian oppression in a unique way. That's next.
And the forecast as we head to the next little bit is going to continue to stay on the cooler side, or not cooler side, drier side, but warmer overall. I'll have that forecast for you coming up in about 3 minutes.